computer. Alrighty, so let's just get started here. And if any of you have any questions at all about anything, feel free to just shoot it down in the chat box. I'll do my best to answer any questions as I can. I'm just gonna share my screen here. This training should not take as long as the last training, so we should easily be done within the hour. So welcome back, everyone, to our second training here for the Finger Lakes Trail Survey. This is going to be our training on how to use the iMap Invasives app. So we're just sort of picking up from last week, and really the way we could think about the trail survey and the training is that we could break it down into 3 different parts, right? So last week we covered the first 2 pieces of how this trail survey works, right? So they talked about surveying, how to actually survey. You go out, look for invasive species, 50-foot radius around you, move 50 feet down the trail, wash, rinse, repeat. And you identify the different invasive species that you actually see, right? So hopefully now some of you are a little bit more familiar with how to identify species like garlic mustard and honeysuckle and things like that. And feel free to, if you ever have any questions about how to identify something, feel free to shoot me an email. Be happy to help you. So those were the first 2 steps that we covered last week. And so this week we're going to cover the final and the most important step of all, and that's actually how to report the invasive species that you found in the field. And so when this is just a really good picture that shows what we're sort of talking about when it comes to really the whole point of the trail survey. This is distribution of tree of heaven in New York State. All these little red dots represent someone finding tree of heaven in that area. Tree of heaven's invasive species we talked about last week. Hopefully you remember. And you really notice that there's these really big gaps, right, in large parts of the state between where tree of heaven's been found. And that really sort of leaves us with 2 options as to what it could be. It could be that tree of heaven simply isn't found in these areas. That's certainly possible, but given the fact that these areas have very similar climates and ecologies to the areas where tree of heaven is found in red, that doesn't really seem likely. What's more likely is that we have really big gaps in our data, right? Like there are people who are using iMap invasives and that are reporting tree of heaven in these areas, but there aren't people who are reporting tree of heaven in these areas. So there probably is tree of heaven in these 2 empty areas, right? But we just don't know about it. So that's what we're trying to fix here. So we're going to be using the iMap Invasive Species app. Hopefully some of you have already maybe downloaded the app on your phones and have made an account. But if you haven't, don't worry. We're going to go through all the steps on how to do that tonight. Just a little bit of background on who they are. They are part of the New York Natural Heritage Program, which is basically a collaboration between SUNY ESF, where I went to school, and New York State DEC. And they run the iMap Invasives database platform. This is essentially a centralized invasive species database that is meant to support invasive species management in the state. It's really good for people like who work in my line of work because it gives us these really comprehensive maps of where everything is in New York State. We actually get like emails, notifications as to when a new species is detected. So this is just like a really valuable tool for us, and making sure that all of your data is entered into this system will make it even more valuable for us. There's a lot of different data sources and a lot of different people use this. So we're talking about local, state, federal agencies, researchers, even museums. So you can see us here, right? Like we're one of the partners in this, Finger Lakes Prism, but other prisms throughout the state use this as well. The Nature Conservancy uses this. Pretty much any New York State agency that is involved with the environment in some ways. We're talking about the DEC, New York State Parks. We're all using this data, and every one of these organizations has the ability to actually access the data that you guys are going to be entering in. So it's really, really helpful for us in a lot of ways. So we are going to just sort of set up tonight, break it down into 3 different phases. I'm going to teach you guys how to set up an account with iMap Invasive Species and how to set up the app on your phone. We're then going to move into taking a test point into how to actually record an invasive species point. It's just going to be for practice for our purposes tonight. And then we're finally going to actually learn how to upload those records into iMap. And all of this is really simple. And basically the way this is going to outline is that you guys are just sort of going to follow along with me as I walk you through the steps on how to do all these things. So just make sure that you have your phone or your tablet or whatever you're going to use to record invasive species ready, as well as opening up the link that I sent down in the chat before. And first, we're going to get started with setting up an account and the app. So you can use iMap invasive species on both your phone and online. We're first going to get started making our accounts on our computers online if you haven't already. And if you already have made an account and you are familiar with iMap invasives, at least to some extent, you could just sit tight for most of the setup here. It's really more for the people who haven't set their accounts up yet. So we're going to start online here, and this would really work best if you're using either Google Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. iMap invasive species doesn't play nice with other browsers, so please use one of these 3 browsers. And so now I'm going to ask all of you guys to start following along with me if you can. So if you can go to the link that I sent in the chat, you can see it right here. It's newyorkimapinvasives.org. And I'm gonna show you how to set up an actual account with it now. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to do that. And then once you get to the website there, if you just see in the top right over here, you're gonna see a login button, and then that's gonna be where we're gonna actually make our account. So once you go there, it's like pretty much setting up an account anywhere else. You're going to have 2 options. You can log in already if you have an account. But if you don't have an account, please just go ahead and create an account. Pretty standard stuff: first name, last name, email, password. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time just to create an account right there. And again, if I'm going too fast for anyone, feel free to just throw something down in the chat box, and I'll do my best to help answer any questions there. And so once you create an account, you will be sent an email from iMap Invasives. And so once you get that email, make sure to check your spam. When I actually set up my account, it originally went to my spam folder in my email. Just make sure to click the link in there. There'll be a link to officially activate your account. And then you're just going to read the user agreement and then accept that. Just give you guys a little bit of time for that. Alrighty, so hopefully you should at least made an account, maybe found the email by now. And so once you make your account, you can go ahead and just go back to the website and log in, and then we'll go from there. All right, if you are still a little bit far behind, that's okay. This is going to be recorded, so you can always catch up later. And I'd be happy to help if afterwards if you haven't caught up yet. So once you log on your computer to the iMap invasive species website, you're going to see this big map, and this pop-up's going to come up that iMap is updated. You could just hit OK. That doesn't really matter. So there's all these different tools we could use for iMap invasive species online. I'd encourage you, if you're interested, to play around with it. But for our purposes right now, we're really just going to be focused on the main menu up here in the top left. So what you're going to do is you are going to click in the top left over here, and you will see a drop-down menu. Go ahead and click on Projects. And then once you click on projects, this is the most important part here, is actually joining the Finger Lakes Prism Volunteer Trail Survey. So we are far from the only project on iMap invasive species. So in the text box here, if you just type in Finger Lakes Prism, and make sure you're capitalizing Finger Lakes, it is case sensitive, you should see Finger Lakes Prism Volunteer Trail Survey pop up towards the bottom here. And then once that pops up, you're going to click on the blue link, and then you're going to be taken to our project page. And then in the top right over here, you're going to hit request to join project. And once you join the project, I will then get a notification. And with that notification, yep, I'm seeing a bunch of project requests right now. I will then have to go in and actually approve you as members for our project. But once you join the project and I approve you, that basically means that all of the points that you're now going to be taking are going to go specifically to our little database. So it's all going to be compiled together. So that's pretty much all we need to do with iMap Invasive Species Online. If you ever just want to see the points you take, you can certainly go ahead and look at them on your computer, but that's pretty much all we ever need to do for iMap Invasive Species on our computers. For the most part, we're going to be using the app. So if you haven't already, please download the mobile app on your phone, because pretty much everything we're going to be doing from here on out is going to be on our phone or your tablet, if that's what you're going to be using. Do we have any questions from anyone so far? We're all feeling good? All right, pretty good, pretty good. So I'll maybe just give a second here. If for people to download the app if they haven't already, and I'll just answer this one question in the chat here. Let's see, join. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to move on ahead here. If you're still waiting to download the app, that's fine. You could just hop along as we go forward here. So we just finished the first step of, well, we haven't finished the first step yet exactly, but we have finished the first part of the first step. We have set up our account. Now we're just going to set up the app. So feel free to follow along with me here as we go through how to set up the app. So the first things first, if you open the app, you should immediately be met with the preferences screen if this is going to be your first time opening the app. But if you're not, and you just see this blank green screen over here, go ahead and tap these little three white lines at the top left, and then just hit preferences. Once you are on preferences, you should be taken to this screen. Go ahead and select your jurisdiction species list as being New York. And then feel free to just throw in the email address you use for your username, and then just enter in the password. And then once you do that, hit retrieve iMap lists. And what should happen is that you'll see this pop up saying your iMap invasives data was retrieved successfully.
This is John. I got an error message.
You got an error message for retrieving iMap lists?
Yes.
Okay. It might be because this is the first time you're setting up your account. So if you're still getting that message, we'll try to fix it after the setup process.
I also got an error message.
Okay, interesting.
I'd signed up this afternoon.
Okay, is everyone else getting error messages? No? Okay. So this isn't like super important for now, getting the iMap list. This is just updating it so that the project will actually appear on your phone. So for those of you who aren't able to retrieve the iMap lists, maybe just hang on for a little bit after and I can help you troubleshoot that.
Yeah, mine actually did work the second time. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So sometimes these things can be a bit finicky. So I apologize if you're ever running into any issues there. But moving on from here, pretty much most of the rest of the preferences stuff is optional, so you really don't need to do anything here. The only thing I'm just going to maybe throw out there is that you can make a custom species list. So when you actually like go to record a species in iMap, it literally has a list of like 600 different species that are found in New York State. Right, we only talked about like 20 last week. So if you don't want to like scroll through that really exhaustive list, you have the option of making a custom species list. I threw all the different invasive species that I talked about last week here. But just because it's going to take so long if you all do that, if you do want to do it, go ahead and just do it on your own time. But for now, you could pretty much just leave everything as it is, unless you want the picture quality to be 100%. Most of this stuff is really pretty optional. And the app is essential to reporting. You can only report using the app. You can't upload using the website in any way. And then this stuff is just, again, it's really just about saving you time. Once I approve you guys for the project, you can set your default project to being the Finger Lakes Prison Trail Survey. But again, I need to go in and do that after the presentation. So really the only important thing that you guys need to do right now is just make sure you hit save. So this way that your account is going to be saved to the app that you're using. The species list is just coming from all of the species that we talked about last week. So we're not asking you guys to survey for all 600 invasive species in New York State. That list is just the species that we talked about in the presentation last week. And it's really up to you if you want to include that invasive species list. All it does is that it just shrinks that list from 600 species down to 20. So it's just about saving you time, but you could still access the same species if you have the long list instead. Good to see you got an okay over there. So that's setting up the app. So step one's done. And now we're moving on to step two. And we are going to take a practice point for recording an invasive species. And the important thing to note here is that you actually don't need an internet connection when you are recording an invasive species. You only need an internet connection when you are uploading those points to the database. So now, after you hit save, you should have been taken back to the original app screen here with the iMap invasive species logo and the green background here. And so what we're going to do next is we are going to go to the top right and we are going to hit add observation. And this is a really simple process. So once you hit add observation, feel free to just take a picture of whatever you want. The first and most important thing we're going to do is take a photo with your camera. Again, could be of anything. And because these are practice points, you don't actually even have to take a picture. If you have a custom species list, you could go ahead and enable that. But for our points right now, we don't need to do that. Then you're going to go to the species list. The one you want to select should be the very first option. It should say a fake species. Go ahead and just select that. And then you can decide whatever you want to do. Decide if you're going to that you detected this fake species or that you didn't detect this fake species. When you guys are actually going to be surveying on the trail, you're going to just be saying that you detected a species. If we asked you to not detect a species, it would take you like 30 minutes just to take 1 point. So only take points if you detected a species. Once you do that, You could pretty much ignore the rest of the stuff with the map. The map is just going to show where that point actually is. If you don't have any connectivity whatsoever, that map will blank out. It'll also include the Latin long points there too. Nothing, you don't need to touch anything with that. This is going to be important once you're actually out on the trail, but you're not going to be able to do it now because I have not approved you yet. But once I approve you to be a part of our projects, selecting this option right here where it says iMap 3 projects optional. For our purposes, it's not going to be optional. We ask you that you change your default project to Finger Lakes Prism Volunteer Survey. It's probably not going to work for our fake points tonight, but when you're actually out going out in the future, you will be able to take these points. Beyond that, organization, you don't need to put any organization. We don't care how long you spent looking for an invasive species, so don't feel any need to fill that out either. The other two important things that you're going to need to fill out is the size of the area containing the invasive species and the distribution of that invasive. So go ahead and just put some random settings in there. And then once you do that, if you feel the need out in the fields that, you know, what you're seeing is notable in some way, or maybe it's in a hard to see spot, you could put in some comments. You don't have to put any comments. It's up to your discretion. And then, of course, don't forget to save your changes. So once you're all set and done, you can just go ahead and hit save, and that should be your point there. And if you are going out in other areas, other counties, remember we cover a 17 county area. Always make sure that you're using the Finger Lakes Prism Volunteer Trail Survey as your project. That way, that information then gets sent to us, because if you just take a point without setting that as your project, that point will just go sort of off into the wider iMap invasive species world, and I won't know that you actually took that point. And then it makes it harder for me to sort of make maps and use this data. So once you do that, that's how you take a point. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And now we're just going to go through the very last step, and that's actually going to be uploading those records to iMap. So once you go back to the main screen now, you should see a little yellow card of the species that you just took. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to this little gray box. You're just going to check it off. And then you're going to go to the top left, so 3 little lines over here, and you're just going to hit upload selected. And then once you hit that, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to upload one record? You're just going to hit OK. And if it works, that card should then disappear. And that's pretty much it. I know sometimes there are issues with uploading points. If you took a point like incorrectly, sometimes the card will appear red. And I've had issues in the past just using it personally where the card won't upload, but hopefully all the points you guys just took should have uploaded right to the database. And once you do that, that's pretty much it. So in regards to uploading records, if you take a point and you see this yellow card here, just important to note that you do need to actually upload these points after you take them, because if you just took the point, you didn't upload it, that record is still on your phone. It has not been sent to the online database yet, so we can't actually see it. The record only then leaves your phone and is inputted to the database when that card then disappears. Any questions so far? Yes, so if you're going to add another observation for another species, so these points only work for one species, right? So if you see Japanese knotweed and then you see like swallowwort, you're going to have to take 1 point for Japanese knotweed and then another point for swallowwort. let's see, can we use this app if we are not specifically doing the trail survey? Yeah, you can use this app for like literally any, you know, invasives, for any invasive species you see. Even if it's not specifically going to the trail survey and you're not on a hike or something, like feel free to take a point. It's still going to be seen by invasive species managers. Is there a way to delete it if we make a mistake? Yeah, so if you, when you see like the card, you'll see this little like pencil here. And if you click that pencil, you could actually go through and like re-edit the point you took. So if you put in the wrong species or you wanted to add in a comment or something, you can go in and do that. How much time do we have to upload after recording? The record will just stay on your phone literally until like forever until you record it. There's no like time limit where you have to record it. It's up to you as to when you record it. I would recommend that if you're out on the trail, don't upload the points until like you go home, because you're probably not going to have great reception anyways. So you might as well just upload them all at once. And if you do take multiple points, you have the option of uploading them all at the same time. So instead of just uploading them one by one, you could just upload them all at the same time. At every station, we need to record each species, even if we see the same species at each observation station. Yes, this PowerPoint will be sent out. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to get to the rest of those questions at the end, because we're essentially like done now. So pretty much that's how to use the mobile app. Now that you've set your preferences, you should be logged in. You know how to record a species and you know how to upload those species. And just a quick note here that taking good pictures is really, really important. Make sure that the pictures you're taking are not like super blurry. We really ask that taking a picture is focused and clear, because it helps us make sure that what you're seeing is actually the invasive species that you believe it to be. And all of the points that you actually upload into the iMap invasive species database, those are actually all double checked by people who work for iMap invasives. So if you're a little unsure as to what you're seeing and you think it might not, or maybe it's an invasive species, go ahead and take the point anyway, because someone will be able to sort of fact check you on that. So yeah, so where do we go from here? You're pretty much ready to go for the trail survey, guys. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. You can pretty much start surveying now that you know how to use the app and you got everything set up as soon as you like. You know, we don't have any qualifications that you have to start in June. If you want to start in May, you want to end in September, it's totally up to you. Really, the surveying the same trail once a month during June, July, and August is just really just like a guideline. And that's just sort of like the baseline of what we're asking people to do. But if you want to survey more than that, like by all means, go right ahead. We also have the Facebook group, Finger Lakes Trail Survey. We have about 50 people on there now. It's a great way if you want to post any questions and pictures about invasive species that you're finding. Other people can help answer it. It's a great way to just keep up to date in any sort of with the rest of the people who are taking part in the trail survey. I'll be posting like different updates on there as to what invasive species you're going to be able to see at different times of the year. You're right. So the invasive species that you're going to see now are not going to be the same invasive species that are going to be out and about like in August, for instance. And if you have any questions that you think are suitable for an email, feel free to email me with any of those questions. So thank you all for sticking through this. Like I said, this is not going to be as long as the last presentation last week. I will try to address any questions that I wasn't able to get to before. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to shoot them down in the chat box. Feel free to send me an email. If you feel that you're all set to go, feel free to leave the Zoom call as well. Thank you guys all for signing up for the trail survey. Really, really appreciate it. It's great to have so many people that are interested in invasive species, and the work you're doing is really, really helping us. So like just sincerely, just thank you all for taking part in this. I really appreciate it. As for questions, I will do my best to answer all the questions that I can. but I cannot promise that I won't accidentally skip one. So if I don't get to your question, feel free to just remind me. I'm stuck after checking upload. How do you actually upload it? Let's see. Checking upload, how do you actually upload it? So it should just be when you go to the top left there, Kate, the option should just be upload records, and then you just hit on that, and then it'll ask you if you want to upload them, and then you hit OK. If it doesn't work after that, maybe just try like restarting the app. The record will stay there after you already took it. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if you're having any other problems. Do we ever actually remove the invasive species? Boy, if it were that simple. The problem with a lot of these invasive species is that they are really, really hard to move. And there's a lot of invasive species, actually, if you do try to move them, the seeds will immediately start like spreading into the soil. And then there's other species where even if you remove all of the above ground material, the root system will still survive and it'll just grow back again next year. There's some species like Japanese stiltgrass and garlic mustard that you actually can remove pretty easily if you just pull it, yank it right out. But for most invasive species, you really need to use like pesticides to remove them. So we're really just focusing on recording here. Is there a way to record a location other than with the GPS? For example, I remember seeing something on a highway entrance and I want to do the record later. iMap doesn't have that ability as far as I know. I think that's just going to have to be something that you're going to have to keep in mind there. But you can, if you want, like if you do take a point somewhere, and like let's say you want to go back and take like points in like an area you weren't able to get to, you can actually go on the iMap invasive species website in your browser, and if you actually just type in like your name, you can see all of the points that you took on the map, and it will show up everywhere, including like the date and time and stuff. So if you can remember like where those points were, you could use the browser to then backtrack to where you could then record new species with the app. I hope that answers your question. Pictures of just individual specimens or also show extent of invasion. As long as you put in with the distribution, like how large the infestation is, right? So if you see like a few garlic mustard plants here and there, and you just say like, okay, this seems like it's sparse. The picture only really needs to be used for identification. So you don't need to show the entire extent because that information is already being recorded in when you're putting in the size and the distribution of the infestation. The picture is really just so we can fact check, we can double check that what you're claiming is an invasive species actually is an invasive species. So feel free to just like take a picture of like one individual plant if you are trying to record like a monoculture of invasive species. Maybe my phone is too old. Yeah, maybe if you want to just hang around, Kate, we can sort of troubleshoot this. But if anyone else, oh, okay, good. Glad it worked. All right, with that being said, does anyone else have any questions? All right, it doesn't seem so. Well, if you have any other questions outside of all this, feel free to shoot me an email. gallo@hws.edu is going to be the best way to reach me. Seriously, thank you guys all for signing up. It's great to have a team here. Join our Facebook group. I'll be posting a lot of different stuff about invasive species and where to find them on there. But with that being said, I hope you all have a good night and take care, guys.